Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at Headshot 3, which adds quite a bit of functionality over what we had previously in Headshot 2, though the systems from Headshot 2 carry over into this release as well. So to start off with, I'm going to go ahead and launch Headshot 3. You can always click the icon that appears in the interface, but I'm going to go up to Plugins, Headshot 3, and then Headshot 3. You can see I get a new window here. I'll go ahead and give myself some more room. You can make this a floating window if you want as well. But the first thing it's going to be asking for is to drag in an image to start off with that's a front image. Now you can go about creating these images in a number of ways. You can do them exactly inside of Character Creator itself using the AI image generator. I'll go and click on that really quick. And we'll get a new window for the AI image generator itself. Now basically what you're going to be doing from the start here is you're just going to give it a description on what type of face you want to create, and it'll go ahead and do the work from there. What I'm going to paste in here is a description that Gemini Pro had helped me create, and basically I'm wanting to get a little bit more of a cartoony, exaggerated features look of a medieval villager. And I won't read through this whole description here, but this will go ahead and give us a good start. You can see down here, this is the cost of actually generating the image, and it is resolution based. So right now it's on 4K, it costs 30. And if I go ahead and select 2K, it's 15. I'm gonna go and do 2K for now because I think that's probably gonna be fine for my purposes. It's not gonna be a hero character really super close up in shots, but we always have this option to bump up in resolution if we need to. So with this in, I'm gonna go and click on Generate Image, and this is going to use the specialty trained Reallusion cloud servers to go ahead and generate the actual image itself. And here we go. Here is the image that's been generated. I'm going to go and click on the folder here so I can go and take a look at it separately. And you'll see some other run-throughs that I've done previously as well. So this is the exact same prompt will give you different results based on the run-through. So I'll go and click on this guy. And here I'll open these up really quick just so you can see. So you can see that even though the proportions are exaggerated a little bit, it's still very realistic in its texture and everything. And one of the big things to really appreciate about this is there's very little shading at all going on in the character. And ideally our source photos have as little shading as possible. You want it to be completely flat lit so those shadows aren't baked into your image. And here we can see the one that was just generated, and I do like the goofiness of this. You can see his eyes are different sizes and things like that, so that's kind of fun. Have a bulbous nose, which I think was part of the description. And yeah, so we have a nice kind of medieval villager here that's a kind of a goofy peon a little bit. We can go ahead and go further and go to the side and body and start to generate the side view and or a body view. And we can go in and say body shape that we want to have: slim, average, male, female, physique, normal, muscular. I'm not going to do this now because I already actually did these previously. I'm going to go ahead and show you the images that I came up with. And it's worth noting that you do not have to generate your characters inside of Headshot 3. You can use your images from any source. In this case, I did a similar process inside of Gemini Pro, and I'll go ahead and show you the results I got from there. This is a result out of Gemini Pro, and the only thing I don't like about this is you can see that there's a little bit more shading built into this, and it's also not perfectly square. The perfectly square doesn't bother me quite as much, but having this shading that's a little bit more pronounced is going to be baked in on the texture that's going to be projected from this image, and so we just have to keep that in mind. And I went ahead and did the similar thing to generate the side view or the profile view. And another thing worth noting here, though, is this is not a perfectly profile image. If it was perfectly profile, you wouldn't see the eye on the other side here. So that's something we'll just have to keep in mind. A nice thing we can do is we can actually modify existing images inside of Headshot 3 as well if we go to the Modify tab. And you can see this is the one that we just generated. But what I can do is just go ahead and drag in my villager front view from Gemini, and that will populate this guy right here. From here, I can go ahead and try and say, hey, you know what? I want you to enhance the image, but importantly, I want you to remove the hair, remove the beard. I'll go in and leave the eyebrows, but you could remove those as well. And you could remove the eyelashes, things like that. So the usefulness of this is we don't want to have those features baked in to our texture. We want to actually add those elements back on. So we'll go in and leave those as is. And then I'm going to go ahead and in this case, I'll generate a resolution of 4K and I'll go ahead and have it generate this image. All right, so that just finished. Let's go ahead and open up that folder so we can take a look. And you can see that we have a nice, really large, this is only at 25% size, version of the character. It looks a little bit more realistic here, but it's removed the hair and the beard and the mustache and things like that. So this gives us a cleaner starting base that we can build up from there while still honoring the original image from Gemini. I'm going to use the images I generated previously, so I'm going to go and drag this guy over. And you can see this is going ahead and loading the front view. I'm going to go and drag my side view over here as well. And now I have the two views ready to go. It's nice that it gives you the option to go ahead and try and add in some additional details that might help the initial mesh generation do better. So for instance, he has kind of an oval face, so I'll choose oval. I don't think there's too much we need to do about forehead and head shape. I'm going to go ahead and say he has strong lines along here, and we have defined nose line right here, and he has a sharp chin and a rounded chin, and eyes, he kind of has eye bags, so I'll go and choose that. He has a bulbous nose, so I want to go ahead and do that. And he also has a defined nose in the front, so we'll go ahead and choose that as well. And I'm going to go and leave the ears as is for now, but we'll go ahead and from there hop over to body. Now remember, I could have generated a body image as well, but I don't think that was necessary, so I'm going to say it's going to be a male and just regular normal body shape and an adult. So I'll go and click on generate. I'll let it do its thing, and then we'll come back after it's done. And straight out of the gate, here is our result. And based on basically no work on my part, this has done a pretty darn good job. And to be honest, in a lot of cases, this might be all I would really need. Since our source image was clean, doesn't have much shading involved, there's not going to be baked in shading very much. So if we apply new lighting to this, it's probably going to do a pretty good job in receiving the dynamic light. I'm going to go ahead and try and refine this guy a little bit though. So first off, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to say, hey, I want to activate the image matching tools so I can compare it to the original photo. And it's going to start on the front view. I'll click on this little plus so I can see the tools. And what I'm going to use right now is the opacity slider from the original photo to our generated mesh. And one defining characteristic of our initial photo that I like is the large irises. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and go somewhere in between so I can kind of see the outline of how far out in the source image those go. I'm going to try and make the irises bigger on the 3D version. So right here you see I have iris UV radius. I'll go ahead and drag that up. You can see that's making the irises bigger. All right, so there we go. I think that did a pretty good job. Go back and forth. The size of the irises are looking a lot more aligned now, and we can always tweak that more later on. So we can see that the features are mostly matching. The head's a little bit larger up here. Not too worried about that, to be honest. The ears are not matching perfectly, but again, they're doing a pretty good job as well. But we can go through the process of trying to refine these things. And the first place I'm going to start is the refine face area right here. And I'll start with the front. This pops up a new window that I'm going to go ahead and make a little bit bigger since I'm going to want to zoom in and get these as accurate as possible. And this is just giving guides for the plugin to try and create more accurate geometry. So you can see here that whenever you select a point, it shows you what it's supposed to be lining up with, and it gives you an idea. So this is basically down by the ear on the skull. And so I can see this is pretty much on point, but I might drag that up a little bit so it's more aligned with where it is there. We can see that this guy is supposed to be right around the corner here. And we'll go ahead and maybe do something like that. And I might just start, honestly, just by aligning the points to the spots, and then I'll go ahead and adjust these Bezier handles for the curvature to match a little bit more, because sometimes I get so caught up of just trying to make the shape conform that I forget that I need to make sure and place the points in the right spot. Okay, and now maybe I'll go ahead and try and adjust the curves to make this lens. So by default, a lot of these are linked. You can see I grab the one handle, it automatically adjusts the other. You can break that, but for now I'm going to go ahead and try and start off by getting these as close as I can by just using them together. So I'll go and select this guy. You can see this is really kind of off kilter. So I'll go ahead and go like this, and I can adjust the tangent to where it looks like it's aligned a little bit better. And I'll go ahead and just work my way around. So you can see that in this case, I do want to break these so they're not connected. So I can go ahead and right up here, and this will break the curve handles. And now I can adjust them individually to try and line them up. The nose is definitely off a little bit. So I'm going to try and move these points in groups and try and get them aligned as best as I can. So I'll line this up over here. That actually works pretty well over there. I might need to bring this in to follow the nose more. And we'll go ahead and nudge these guys up so they correspond with roughly where they're supposed to be at. Move on to the lips, and I'll go ahead and fast forward this so you don't have to watch everything. And we'll go ahead and do the eyes as well. For the front view, I think this is looking pretty good. I can go ahead and do preview current parts. It'll give us an overlay with the actual geometry on how it would line up. And I think that's looking pretty darn good. Overall, I can see there's a little bit of a mismatch on the mouth right here, and I can continue to adjust that to try and get them to match. But I think honestly, overall, this is going to work pretty darn good. So I'm going to go ahead and go out of edit. I'm going to say apply the current parts. And once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and close out of this window. And we're going to go ahead and repeat the process, slightly different for the refined face side. I'm going to pause the tutorial here really quick for an update to the core video, and this is roughly in the next step what you're going to see me working with. I'm still going to include my original video after this because I want you to see that not only is it possible to still get good results if not doing things perfectly, but also so you can maybe start to catch what I did wrong as well. But the overall idea here is that in this next side view, we're going to try and follow the profile of the character to try and generate the mesh just like we did with front. But you can see I'm getting a little bit of funkiness here. You can notice that this is not a perfectly profile image. If it was perfectly profile, you wouldn't see the eye on the other side. The better solution is to go ahead and try and generate new renders. And I'll pop up my Gemini Pro conversation, and you can see I just said, hey, this is not a perfectly profile view. Go ahead and render one that is. And the exact next render was perfectly profile. I don't want this non-perfectly profile image. I'm going to go ahead and try and regenerate it so I do have one. All I did in order to do that is I went to the AI image generator, went to side and body, and I just chose side and had it generate over again. And as you can see in this version, you can't see the eye on the other side and it's perfectly profile. So I thought this was an important tip because instead of trying to struggle with something that's not perfectly profile, you can instead go ahead and generate that, and you can ditch the one that's not, and you're probably going to set yourself up for a much better result in the long run. The other thing I wanted to mention that Reillusion helped me with is that you want to try and place these points perfectly based on where the guide is telling you to. I thought trying to get the Bezier curves perfect was just as important, but they were saying based on the mesh that's going to actually be generated, it's much more important to make sure the points are placed in the correct spot. I find the descriptions they give quite helpful. But for instance, let's go ahead and take a look at apex of the nose profile. I don't really particularly perfectly know what apex is. I think I can guess from that, but it can make it much easier if I had a little bit more of a description here. And thankfully there's a resource for that. If you go to their online Headshot 3 manual, you can see that not only does it have the same name that you would get, but it also gives a description. And so for instance, one that was super helpful for me is for the median of the skull back. Okay, well I don't know exactly what that means, but it says middle point of the back of its head sits around the level of the eyebrows. Okay, well that helps me a lot knowing that it's roughly in line with the eyebrows. So having all these descriptions I think will be super helpful to make sure you're getting the best results. With that newer truly side profile view, I'm going to go ahead and regenerate our character. And to replace this not fully profile view, I'm going to go ahead and drag in our new version. And I'm going to go ahead and regenerate. And by the way, I think his chin probably doesn't need to be on sharp chin, so I'm going to put that to normal. But everything else is staying the same. And I'll go ahead and hop over to body. It'll still be a male, adult, normal, and we'll go ahead and regenerate that. All right, so with a fully regenerated head, realistically, I probably would need to start over with the refined face front because I'm guessing it resets all the settings. But just for the sake of recording time, I'm going to go ahead and jump straight over to refined face and talk about the differences that we have in this view versus the front. So first off, we need to place where the eye corner is, and then if I click on this guy, where the corner of the mouth is. So I'll go ahead and hop in here and put this guy there. Maybe I'll even get a little bit closer there. And then this guy that's down here would probably want to be at the corner of the mouth. All right, that's all that's needed on this screen. Next, I'm going to go and click on Adjust. And this is just trying to get the overall mesh shape roughed in. I'm going to look particularly at the overall scale, the alignment of the front, and I'm just going to point out now that the ear, at least for me, hasn't ever perfectly lined up at this stage, but we can always adjust that later on. So I'm going to go ahead and move this forward a little bit, or at least to our screen left. I'll go and nudge it down. And honestly, that looks pretty darn good. I see a little bit of the forehead that's going, or the top of the skull that's going over here. And this is not quite long enough back here, but this is a nice start here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Finish. And now we have, like in our front view, we have the curves and the Bezier handles that we can adjust. I'm going to fast forward through this just because you've already seen the process for the front. The only main difference here is that I want to go ahead and place these extra dots, or extra points, I should say, rather, in the designated areas. And of course, we can see this is roughly at the top of the ear, bottom of the earlobe, it looks like. And then this guy, if we follow this line out, it looks it's a little bit lower than the lip line along the jaw. So I'll say around here and maybe somewhere around there. And it looks actually, it's a little bit in front of the earlobe. So that looks like that's roughly about right. And we can always change and adjust that if we need to. So I'll fast forward this. You'll see me swapping back and forth. I do have off screen the descriptions for all the face positions to help me make sure I have them right. And I'll go ahead and hop forward. And as my very first test mesh, I can see that things are off a little bit on the forehead and the back of the skull. So I'm going to keep hopping back and forth between the edit mode and the preview mode to try and refine that as best as I can. And here, after adjusting a number of the points, I think this is looking pretty darn good. Not perfectly aligned here, but honestly, this looks like a naturally shaped head, and I'm going to have hair on the gentleman anyway, so we're probably not going to have to worry about that too much. So with that, I'm going to go and click on Apply All. All right, that's finished processing. I'm going to close this guy down. Let's go ahead and take a look at our result. I think this is looking pretty darn good as far as our profile and front views of the head. We could always continue to refine this, but I'm going to end up making this a little bit more stylized of a character anyway. So getting it 95% of the way there already is probably as far as I need to go here. I'm going to pop back to my originally recorded video, so you might see a little bit of the head change as far as how it looks, but the important part of the next section is that I'm going to be starting to apply the stylized aspects of the character. And we'll go ahead and open up our Actor Mixer plugin again. Use that as our current. And what I'm going to use to try and get the more caricature style looking is the Caricature Mixer, which is a re-illusion release that I think is really flexible because it gives you the proportions of all kinds of different builds to where if you mix these together, you can basically get any type of build that you want. So I'm going to go and load that for the overall character, but then I want to more specifically load these guys up for the head sections so I can fine tune it. All right, I have the HD character mixer loaded up for all these guys, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna blend between these two guys. This kind of has the lean, kind of goofy look that I think I'm going for. Maybe a little bit of this guy as well, but let's go ahead and drag this guy over. So I'm gonna be mixing between these two guys mainly. So I'm gonna go and click on Start Mixing, and now I can go ahead and say, okay, what type of proportions do I wanna go for? I'm not gonna push these all the way in either case. I'm just going to do a slight mix to push it a little bit more into the realm of caricature without going overboard to where it's looking a little bit too funky. Okay, maybe something like that I think looks good as a starting point. I'm going to go ahead and hop over to the eyes. And I like in our source image, it's a little bit off screen right here, but he has kind of the wide, like kind of frightened eyes as his default. And so I'm going to look through these guys and see if any of these get me closer to what I think I'm wanting. And it looks like that might be along the way. Or maybe this guy right here. I think I just want this. It's just a little bit wider. You can see I'm not going a huge amount, just going from here to here. A little bit more default base emotiveness in the eyes. Go and hop over to the nose. And let's go ahead and see. I mean, the nose already looks pretty good, I think, as far as the direction I'm wanting it to go in. We could always add a little bit of tweak to that if we wanted. Maybe just a little bit here, but I think that's probably as much as I'm going to do. Yeah, I think this guy gives a little bit more base. Almost like a default worried look that he has here. All right, so I think that's looking pretty good. Now remember, we have a somewhat caricature stylized head, but we have a perfectly default realistic proportion body. So we're probably going to want to do a little bit of changes on this as well. And sometimes I go overboard here, so I'm going to try and keep it light. But again, I'm probably going to mix between these two guys the most. So I'll go ahead and drag that one over. And you can see he's getting the giraffe neck. We won't worry about that for now. We'll be adjusting that in just a little bit. But overall, let's just see if we can find a body type that kind of fits his look for his head. I'm thinking maybe something just along the lines of something like that might be pretty good. You know, we didn't take it too far, but he has a little bit more of a gangly look to him. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll uncheck Start Mixing. Now let's go ahead and fix his giraffe neck that we've got here, at least the beginnings of a giraffe neck. So let's go ahead and on our morphs, I'll go and click on the actor so I have all of them available. We'll just call this neck length, I believe. Yeah, neck length. And that looks like that already did it. If he had a really long neck and minus 100 wasn't enough, remember we can always type in a larger value manually. but I think that looks pretty good there. And now let's go ahead and see this guy acting a little bit after we get him the facial hair that we had in our original source image. So if we pull that guy back up, let me do that really quick. You can see that our original Gemini image has kind of just like kind of scruffy look overall, not too much facial hair, but definitely some is there. So let's go ahead and try and see if we can get some of that in there. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and close down headshot, or at least the window for it. And we're going to go ahead and go to all, and I'm going to go ahead and search for the beard and brow builder. So I'm going to go packs, and let's see if I scroll down, I'm sure that'll pop up pretty quick. Let's just go beard. There we go. And again, this is a Relusion pack that I like a lot because it applies to almost any character. You can mix and match. It's not just a one-shot type thing. So I'm going to go ahead and go to hair. And let's go ahead. I think what I'm going to use is, it's called sparse, I believe. It's just, you know, a little bit. Yeah, so here are the sideburns. Perfect. Let's go ahead and do the mustache. Okay, perfect. Just sparse. And then we'll go and do this here. And then we'll add one of these two guys. We can compare the two and see which one we like more. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. So we got our guy with his facial hair kind of back on. And again, it wouldn't have been bad if we would have used our version that already had the texture baked in, because this would just be adding on top of it. So it's nice that the feature is available to remove the hair, but you don't always have to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead, and now that we have that, let's go ahead and work on these eyes. These eyes are looking a little bit funky. It's supposed to be looking straight forward, and it looks like his eyeballs are a little bit sunken into his head. So let's go ahead and go back to our morphs. I'm going to do eyeball depth, I believe. Yeah, eyeball depth. You can go one way. Yeah, we don't want it. We don't want that. So let's go ahead and get him forward a little bit. We don't want it clipping through. And then probably the eyeball width needs to be adjusted a little bit as well. So I'll do width. There we go. This is starting to look better. And then we'll go and do eyeball height. And bring this guy up a little bit to where he's looking straight. Perfect, cool. And let's go ahead and make sure that his eyes are lining up decently enough. We could probably bring those forward just a little bit. So let's just do depth. Yeah, that looks nice, I think. Perfect, so we got his nice expressive eyes back. We've got the facial hair. Let's go ahead and check and make sure his eye blink and his teeth look correct. So we're gonna go ahead and close the eyes using this guy right here. And we can see he's not blinking all the way. So I'm gonna go up to character, and then we're gonna say correct eye blink. And there we go. Now his eyes close all the way. And we may need to adjust the eyelashes as well, but we'll just leave those for now and see if we needed to adjust those later on. But if you needed to, you can go up to character and then correct eyelashes. But we'll leave those as is for now. Okay, so let's go ahead and open the mouth real quick. It looks like his teeth are pretty well lined, but once we start having him act a little bit, we might find that we need to tweak that a little bit. Or the jaw. Sometimes the jaw will protrude out the front of the skin. But let's go ahead and get some acting on this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and click on motion. Let's go facial rig. And then, actually, let's see. We'll do wrinkle check and dramatic male. I think I like that one just to test out the acting and see if the range works okay. All right, let's go ahead and play this guy, and we'll take a look at our first animated version of him. Yeah, so we can see here that his teeth are protruding out a little bit. I'm not quite sure if that's the top or bottom, but let's go ahead and say teeth. Actually, let's try, yeah, we'll do teeth. So teeth, upper depth, let's go ahead and, yeah, so we can see we just need to push those back a little bit. And you know what? I think that's looking pretty good overall. I don't want you guys to have to watch me apply this wrinkle check over and over all the time. But you can see overall, the expressiveness of the character is working well. And it's already rigged and weighted and ready to go, which is one of the big pluses and aspects of this. All right, let's go ahead and give him some slightly better lighting just to see what it would look in a more dramatic fashion. So I'm going to go to Content. I'm going to go to Item. And I'm just going to search for light. I'll go and scroll down. And I think something like maybe cinematic light. Let's see how this looks. There we go. Yeah, so this just gives a little bit more personality and a little bit more dramatic fashion of this. All right, so here's another version of this character I did using the Gemini Pro images from start to finish. You can see a slightly different, definitely different mixes of the character, and I added some hair here, of course. But you can see I've gone through the same steps to make sure that the emotion and everything like that works. Again, the only downside to this Gemini image that I used is we're going to have a little bit of shading baked into the side here because it's in this original image, but it's not horribly pronounced. And here's the initial version I did using the character creator cleaned versions of the images. And you can see again, based on the actor mixer sliders and applying a different hairstyle, you can get drastically different looks, but still have the range of emotion and acting that comes through. All right, everyone, so I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. This has been really fun to see how character creator and headshot especially have evolved over time. But then in headshot 3, we have this really nice image-based workflow that uses a front and profile view, and you can use the AI image generator to either clean images you already have or generate them from scratch. But again, you're not tied into having to generate the images inside a character creator and headshot. You can always use them from Gemini Pro or ChatGPT or whatever source you want to use. All right, everyone, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.